Paul, yes, this says, moreover, Americans have a constitutional right to criticize their government and government officials. In Lewis versus City of New Orleans, the Supreme Court found unconstitutional a municipal ordinance that made it a crime for any person wantonly to curse or revile or to use obscene or opprobrious language toward or with reference to any member of the city police while engaged in the performance of duty. Oh, freedom to verbally oppose or challenge police action without risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. In essence, contempt of cop, is not a crime. Oh, Lewis versus City of New Orleans. The Supreme Court found it unconstitutional. Now, I understand about obscenities, okay? I would not curse any person in law enforcement. I wouldn't tell you to go to hell. Pooch. I wouldn't have God damn you. Oh, I'm one of these that really is very, very sensitive when any person uses any curse. But it seemed that somebody in law enforcement was saying that I was being verbally offensive to them. Now, if you don't want to watch the videos, don't. Okay? But this concept of a police state, ooh, you know, I had known this Marine. His name was Dave. And he's a really good guy. And as a Marine, he was stationed in, I think it was Iraq or Afghanistan, doing security work for the Army. Yes. Well, I got to know Dave, and I really liked him as a person. He was one of those that when you looked at him, you'd say, well, he's got a few personal problems, possibly some defecation issues. Yes. Yes. But as a Marine, when you look at him, you'd say he's always going to be a Marine. Yeah. I think they train Marines to be Marines for their whole lives. Now, I know that a lot of them say, thank you for your service, but I'm not one of those Americans. I'm happy that you served in the Marines, and I'm glad that you remember that you are a Marine, because when a Marine. When a person has been a Marine, coach, they don't forget the training that the Marines give them. Yes. Now, Dave had a cell phone that I was wanting to use, and seemed like every month he'd get a few phone calls from those in prison. Chooch. Did you know in prison you have a right to have your complete file? Chooch. Seemed to me that some people were being put in prison because of a police state that doesn't recognize the rights of American citizens. Now, for every police officer that said, ouch, you hurt me, you told me to go fuck myself, pooch, I'd like to know all of those police officers throughout this nation for the last 40 years that filed charges of being verbally assaulted by somebody that they were questioning, ouch, or arresting. Choo, 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 choo. Could you get me the arrests of each and every American citizen where was an actual individual in the employment of a police or sheriff's department that said, you hurt me when you told me to fuck myself? Now, I had this agreement with Dave because he's a Marine. And I said, Dave, you know what I want to do? I want you to have one cell phone number that every convict in prison can call every month. There's a lot of money in lawsuits. I don't think you understand the amount of money I'm talking about today. Now, what happens is those that are incarcerated, they have this problem that they got put in prison without realizing that one corrupt judge fucked up their life 20 years ago, and pooch, all of a sudden their criminal record was blemished because nobody wanted to enforce the actual requirements of the law. Yes, yes. So they got arrested when they were 18 for having marijuana. He's a drug user. And they did, 6 months in jail for it. Then they're in their 20s and they got arrested again for DUI. Pow! You should go to prison for that. No, jail. But then they got in a spat with their loved one while experimenting with drugs. They're not actual drug addicts. Find themselves in the state pen and they got 5 years because somebody along the way of their criminal record did not enforce the actual requirements of the law. Now, when you get in prison, Pooch, you can use the telephone. Isn't that right? And I thought, Dave, Pooch, and then there was this other guy, Pooch. I had known him from the Serenity House. One of these that if they just had a little cocaine and maybe a Mexican whorehouse. Their minds would get very aggressive, Pooch, at the thought of suing judges that really fucked up the life of some American citizen that happens to be in prison right now. Now, when we go through the actual individuals that said, well, I was verbally assaulted, I just want to know what officers were so sensitive, Pooch, that they didn't realize that contempt of cop is not a crime. Now, give me every arrest of every citizen where it was an employee of the fucking police department.